Well, you're going to be glad you tuned in to the National Real Estate Cafe with Don Gentley and Gino Front today, because this is big news. Some of the biggest news we've talked about in quite some in a long time, actually, Gino.
Yeah, and what's going to happen is this is one of Donald Trump's big things was tax reform. So it's finally coming to the table, right? A few months after he's finally getting a little bit of a groove on trying to figure out how to negotiate different bills with the political climate, let's call it. Here's an interesting bill that gives the Democrats a lot of what they want.
So who does this affect most? Let's check out this graph, and we'll start with this.
Well, looking at this graph alone, Don, if you look at the right-hand side, you'll look at that almost, let's call it 83% of the tax benefit for the home interest deduction is going to those that make over $100,000 a year. So you could argue that only those, almost, I mean, really 80 some odd percent, are the ones that are affected by this tax bill. What the plan is to lower the maximum deduction to $500,000 instead of $1.1 million. Right now you could do $1 million plus $100 for home improvement. And the part that not a lot of people are talking about is the second home.
That's a big deal. You can't write off your second home, and a lot of people actually really write off vehicles as a second home, whether it's an RV or vehicles over a boat or vehicles over 6,000 pounds, I believe, something like that.
You could do that as well. So that's one of the interesting things. Now, I also want to call your attention to the left-hand side here. Those that make less than $50,000 a year, which is the share of taxpayers. Look at that. 50% of the share of total taxpayers make below $50,000, yet they don't benefit from this deduction. Well, the reason they don't benefit from this deduction is because of the standard deduction that comes with all tax returns is $12,500. Right. So unless you have more than $12,500 in interest, which in a lot of parts of the country you don't, then there's no mortgage interest deduction to be had. So that's one of those things where they're looking to double the standard deduction
for those.
So again, that below $50,000 category, that'll be gone in a few years with inflation and the new standard interest deduction, and we'll start looking at things from $50,000 and up.
All right. So and again, one of the main things too is they're going to make a big deal about this. Now, does it affect certain people, especially California and the higher price ranges? We're going to be affected a ton because now it's going from $1 million down to $500,000. But most of us buy homes not just for the interest deduction. That is a benefit, obviously, of home ownership. But we buy it because we want home ownership, we want basically a forced savings plan, appreciation, and so much more. So basically, we'll see if this passes, though.
I was just going to say, this isn't set in stone. This is the level one. And so everybody's focused on the mortgage interest deduction. So I would always say, caution you to, if there's a lot of noise about the mortgage interest deduction, what's on page 1200 that we should really be looking at?
Yeah, and maybe some of the higher incomes get benefited by the corporate tax cuts. So we're going to see, but you're going to have to stay tuned to the National Real Estate Cafe daily to find out what really happens with the tax reform. And find out these sent right to your phone by texting NREC to the number 58885 or
don&gino.com.